All right, guys, hello. Welcome to our next set of notes, which is the Byzantine Empire notes. So, we've talked about our sixth grade notes, we talked about the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire splitting apart. We talked about all of that. Now, we're going to talk more about the Byzantine Empire. So, what we're going to do is we are going to be learning about three standards. So we have 712, identify the continuation of the Eastern Roman Empire as the Byzantine Empire, and describe the diffusion of Christianity in the Latin language. So what that means is we're going to talk about how the Byzantine Empire kept moving on, how they're spreading Christianity, and how the Latin language ends up spreading. Even though they switch over to Greek, they still are spreading the Latin language due to all of the trade routes and things around there. 713, explain the importance of Justinian's political, social, and architectural achievements. So, what did Justinian do? Why is he important? And 714, analyze the importance of regional geography and the location of Constantinople in maintaining European culture. So, why is Constantinople's location and geography so important for it to be such an important city? Now, don't get discouraged by all this yellow over here. Okay, these are a ton of I can statements. I know. We are really going to focus on summarizing the consequences of the fall of the Roman Empire, including the continuation of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, Justinian, Constantinople. We've already analyzed the legacies of Rome. Okay, we've already done a lot of this. All right, we are going to summarize again summarize the consequences of the fall of Rome, which again we're getting in with Justinian. Okay, we're going to focus on Justinian's code and the Nika riot, which almost put Justinian out of a job. And we are going to analyze the importance of the Byzantine Empire and the location of Constantinople in maintaining European culture. So we're going to focus on, hey, this city is important. Why is it important? Now, instead of our words being in red, today they are highlighted and bolded and in black. So colors change a little bit, but it's still underlined, still lets you know what you need to write down. So at the height of its power, the Roman Empire was one of the largest empires in the world. From the founding of the city of Rome to its fall, the Roman Empire kept expanding until it included much of the land around the Mediterranean Sea. The Romans amassed their vast empire by fighting and subduing enemies. Amassed means that's how they got it. Subduing means, taking them out. But it was the Roman language of Latin, thousands of miles of roads, and the Roman code of laws that held the empire together for centuries. So it wasn't just good emperors. It was the language, it was the roads that they were using to travel, and it was their laws. Okay? A country is more than its government. It's everything surrounding it. Okay? We could see over here that this is the largest the Roman Empire was. We could see it on this map here. Lots of pretty colors. But by 284, the Roman Empire was just too large for any one emperor to govern effectively. So Diocletian split the empire into two halves. The capital of the Western Roman Empire was Rome, and the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire was Constantinople. Hey, look, this is the same map we did yesterday as our map activity. Wow. Wow. Okay, sorry, had to do it. Constantinople lays between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, we can see it right here. Its geographical position between Europe and Asia, and it being along the Silk Road, which we saw on our map activity yesterday, travels through here, goes right to Constantinople, as well as its natural harbor, makes it ideal for trading. Okay, so it has water access to other areas through the Black Sea, through the Mediterranean Sea, and through the Silk Road for trading as well. It is one of the richest cities in the known world at the time. It is so rich because of all of those trading opportunities. Okay, you have the Silk Road. You have trade opportunities from people along the Black Sea, from people along the Mediterranean Sea, from the Germanic tribes that took over the Western Roman Empire. Okay, lots and lots of people are going to trade there. And because the Silk Road actually travels through Constantinople, the leaders of Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire could actually charge a fee or a tax to get in the city to trade. So that's even more money that they can get. Money, 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 money. Now, obviously, as we've talked about before, the official collapse of the Western Roman Empire took place in 476 AD, when the Visigoths, or Germanic invaders, it was more than just the Visigoths, but they're the most well-known group. They invaded Rome and they left the city in ruins. With the fall of the Western Roman Empire complete, all that remained of the 1,000-year-old Roman Empire was the Eastern Roman Empire. Now, the Eastern Roman Empire was also known as the Byzantine Empire because of the small but important town of Byzantium along the Bosphorus Strait. Remember on our map yesterday? Matter of fact, I'll scroll back to it. On our map yesterday, we had Constantinople, which used to be known as Byzantium, but we also had another box pointing, or another arrow pointing directly to the same spot. That is the Bosphorus Strait. The Bosphorus Strait is directly next to Constantinople, and that is its natural harbor. Okay, so that is very, very important. That is the waterway that leads the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea and other areas. It's very, very necessary, and part of the reason why Constantinople is so important. The people living in the Eastern Roman Empire and its capital city of Constantinople were Romans by choice, but they were actually Greek by geography, language, and culture. They thought of themselves as the inheritors of Roman culture and history, but life in the Eastern Roman Empire was different from, and in some ways even better than, life in the Western Roman Empire. The cities were larger and wealthier. The people were more open to different ideas due to being near the Silk Road and all of the cultural diffusion that comes with that. And the borders were guarded and less prone to barbarian invasions. Barbarian is just another word for uncivilized. A lot of this time, Europeans considered anyone that wasn't a European uncivilized. Is that true? No, but that's the way they saw it. Whereas the Western Roman Empire had a history of persecuting Christians, the Byzantine Empire was a Christian state, founded on both worldly power and the authority of the church. Persecution means you're punishing them for believing something, so the Western Roman Empire at this time was punishing Christians. The Byzantine Empire was a Christian state founded on worldly power, meaning that the power of the emperor, the power of the government, and the authority of the church. So, yes, they're running on the government, but they're also running on church power. So the church has as much say in the government as the actual government does, which is great if everyone has the exact same religion and they're all okay with it. But in other areas, that's really bad because that leads to other religions being persecuted, being hurt, mistreated. Okay? We see that throughout the world today. Constantinople was the hub of the empire. It's the capital city. That's where everything's going to happen. It's protected by walls, and the city was a social center of the empire and the home of the hippodrome. So the hippodrome is here. They had horse racing, chariot racing, and political discussions in the enormous arena lined with statues of gods, emperors, and heroes. All right, now the hippodrome took some inspiration from the Colosseum, but it tweaked it and made it its own. All right. So instead of being a full circle, we obviously can see that it is extended out. It's very, very good and neat. All right. It would be really hard to build a dome on top of that, so probably wouldn't be the best for a domed roof. But we can see how that is so important and so large compared to the other buildings. All right. We can also see the protection by walls. It is all walled, surrounded in. The walls are there for a few reasons. One, if the water levels get too high, they are a barrier to keep the land from overflowing with floodwater. They're also there for protection against invaders. All right, in some of the spots, we can see this section right here where it's kind of boosted out. You'd have guard towers, all right? You'd have guard posts for people to attack. Right, and you can see a harbor over here where you have ships coming in. We can see it over here as well. We have openings to let them in or out. You can see they were basically built up for trading. And we can see a lot of houses and buildings around. All right, so you are going to pause and answer the questions using your notes or your slides that we just went over. I need you to answer the 4 questions. Pause for a few minutes, do them. Question number 1, how did the Roman Empire grow so large? Number 2, why did the Roman Empire last for so long? Number 3, what caused the Roman Empire to fall? And number 4, why was the Byzantine Empire able to flourish or grow a lot when the Western Roman Empire collapsed or fell apart? All right, guys, so pause the video, take a couple minutes, answer your questions. All right, so let's go over these questions. Number 1, how did the Roman Empire grow so large? Well, they conquered and subdued their enemies. They took over lands, they got rid of people that would attack them or try to take their land back. Well, when you do that, you get more and more land and more people. Number 2, why did the Roman Empire last so long? They had a Roman language, the vast systems of roads, and laws that held the people together. Remember, it isn't always government that holds people together. It's people that live in the same area, it's people that follow the same laws, people that speak the same language. And yes, I know laws tend to go with the government, but there are some laws that are shared throughout areas as well. Number 3, what caused the Roman Empire to fall? Well, it grew so large that just one emperor couldn't rule it effectively. And when it split into two, the West fell apart. It was invaded by Germanic tribes, aka barbarians. They invaded Rome and they destroyed the city. When you destroy the capital city, the rest of the empire is generally not going to last very long. In the Byzantine Empire, why was it able to flourish or grow while the Western Roman Empire collapsed? Well, the Byzantine Empire was much better set up for trade, and its people were more diverse and open to new ideas. That's going to allow it to flourish and grow because they're more open to learning from other people. All right. Ooh, over here we have a map. All right. This is a map of Constantinople in the Byzantine period. All right. So we have a key here telling us what some of the things are. This border around here is going to be some walls. Now we have 2 questions that we need to answer by using this map. Number 1, what was the most important advantage of Constantinople's location? And number 2, how did Constantinople's location allow it to maintain European culture? So how is that location going to let it keep the European culture alive? Again, take a couple minutes, answer your questions. All right, so number 1, what was the most important advantage of Constantinople's location? Well, it's surrounded by water. It's going to be a natural trading port, right? Even if you're wanting to travel past Constantinople, you're still probably going to stop there to get supplies. And how did Constantinople's location allow it to maintain European culture? Well, it's located between Europe and Asia. Okay, we saw that on our map activity yesterday. Asia is going to be on the right-hand side, Europe's on the left when we're looking at a map. So traders and other people traveling between the 2 continents are passing through the city, bringing their ideas and their beliefs with them. All right, whether it's traveling on the Silk Road, traveling by boat, they're going to go through Constantinople. All right, so they're going to maintain that culture while learning cultures from other areas as well. Now, Justinian was proclaimed the new emperor in the year 527. During his nearly 40-year reign, Justinian was responsible for significant political, social, and architectural achievements. So he did a lot of things. This is Justinian here. When it came to foreign affairs, Justinian looked both east and west. He continued the Byzantine Empire's long-standing battle with Persia. Now, to his credit, he was able to maintain many of their eastern provinces. He also conquered much of the North African coast during his reign as emperor. And after the fall of Rome and the Western Roman Empire, Byzantine emperors, they kind of toyed around with this idea of reconquering the Western Roman Empire, rebuilding the Roman Empire, as it were. With the support of his army and his navy, Justinian successfully reconquered parts of the Western Roman Empire. So he got parts of them. He didn't get the whole thing, though. Justinian also endeavored to make life better within the empire. So that was one of his goals. An endeavor is like a goal, something he wants to do. So he tried to eliminate corruption by doing away with the sale of provincial governorships. Basically, people were buying their way into jobs or positions that they didn't deserve. He did so because oftentimes those who would buy the office or bought the office then taxed their subjects in an effort to recoup the money spent to buy said office. So really, they would buy the office and then charge the normal people more for their taxes because of how much money they spent to buy the place. It's not very fair. In the end, this policy was unsuccessful, and it almost led to Justinian being overthrown. So guys, this is a warning. Even something that sounds so good and like it should be normal, people aren't always going to go for it. Emperor Justinian really made his mark in other ways as well. His most lasting contribution to history and to the preservation of Rome was his legal code, Justinian's Code. All right. Now, those of you that have already had us for Dragon Time this week, fourth period, that's today, you read a little bit about Justinian's Code, meaning these laws that he created. So this shouldn't be totally new knowledge. Justinian's Code was a collection of all Roman laws from the distant past to the modern laws of the Byzantine Empire. So the code consisted of three things: all past Roman law, so he wasn't getting rid of old Roman law, he was keeping it together. The more modern Byzantine laws of Justinian's day, so he was using old laws and new laws, and commentary from judges across the centuries. So in the United States, we have the Supreme Court, and they rule on parts of the Constitution, on state laws, and they tell you whether or not it is constitutional based on the law of the land, which is the Constitution. So for Justinian to keep up with that commentary from judges across the centuries, that means he's noticing and paying attention to what the judges say is legal and what isn't. And he's keeping that in there so that if the next time he thinks of a law, he can look back and go, the judge said we can't do that because of this. Or, hey, the judges said we can do that because of this ruling. We have that a lot in the United States. All right, we have county courts, we have state courts, the federal courts. Big deals here. Now, the unique part of the code was that it was a legal textbook meant for the education of present and future legal minds in the Byzantine Empire. All right, so it wasn't just, hey, here's a book of laws. It was, hey, here's a book of laws. Here's what they mean. Learn it. This is important for you to being part of this legal group. But why is knowing laws so important for a normal person? So it's so important to know that because you have to be able to survive in your country or your empire. You need to know the laws. But these past Roman laws, they were hard to get a hold of. They were hard to read. They were hard to understand. And some of them conflicted with the Byzantine laws. So by Justinian actually bringing all these together, he made it easier for the normal person to understand the law too, which was really important, and it helped his empire out a lot. So why was it so important that Justinian preserved the legal codes of ancient Rome? What does this preservation of those laws have on the legal codes of the modern world? All right, so go on ahead and type your answer down. We'll discuss it once you've typed. All right, so you should have discussed that with your classmates. There's not a specific thing you have to have written down there. That's why we went past. Now, Justinian's code is the parent of most modern legal codes. In your own words, explain why it is or why it is not important for laws from the past to still be in use today. So you need to write at least 3 sentences why we either need past laws to keep being used or why we don't need past laws. Okay, go on ahead. Take you a few minutes, write it down. Okay. Now, it wasn't just Justinian doing a lot of stuff here. It was also Theodora, his wife. Justinian's wife Theodora was an early women's rights advocate who encouraged her husband to change laws to protect women. Her influence, along with the movement away from the Roman belief systems that viewed women as lesser members of society than men, brought about the following changes in the legal code that would benefit women. Inheritance laws changed. So under Justinian, a wife's dowry which is the money or items that they would give to the husband when the woman got married, reverted back to her upon the death of her husband. They used to just go to his family. Now she gets them back. While previously women had to have an acceptable reason for divorce to divorce their husbands, they gained more access to divorce in the age of Justinian. So you were more likely to be able to get a divorce if you needed it. Unlike today, actresses were the lowest members of society and had very few rights. And according to law, actresses could not change professions or leave their employers. Thanks to Theodora, who was an actress at one point, a new law allowed women to leave the profession at will. Right? Could you imagine being in a job that you hate and you can't leave and you can't change your boss? It'd be terrifying. It'd be the worst. While Byzantine women were still primarily housekeepers, stayed at home, cleaned, cooked, took care of the kids, they definitely gained more rights under Justinian than their Roman predecessors had enjoyed. So predecessor is someone beforehand. All right. So what Justinian might have looked like up here, what Theodora might have looked like down here. No, they are not related. They are not related. Do not get that through your skull. Okay. The person who did these mosaics just really made them look similar. They're not related. I promise you. No. Now in 532, Justinian ordered the remains of the second Hagia Sophia, which was a famous Greek Orthodox church in Constantinople, to be torn down and replaced with a grander and more lasting building. The third and final Hagia Sophia was, and still is, an architectural masterpiece. It has a large domed roof and a semi-domed altar with 2 porches. Mosaics of 6 winged angels called seraphim cover the arches that support the dome. Justinian wanted the new Hagia Sophia to incorporate something from every province, so he ordered all of the provinces in the Byzantine Empire to send pieces of architecture to be included in the new church. So marble came from Turkey, bricks came from as far away as North Africa. Right, a province is just like a state or a territory. Since Greek Orthodox was the official religion of the Byzantines, the Hagia Sophia became the central church of the religion and the place where new emperors were crowned. The Hagia Sophia served this pivotal role in the Byzantine culture and politics for much of its first 900 years of existence. And guys, it still exists today. It still stands. It is still there. It is one of the few examples of this. It is a miracle that it is still standing. It's not a Christian church anymore, but it still exists. All right. Greek Orthodox is Eastern Orthodox. That is the split of Christianity that happened when the West and the East split apart. Okay, when the West split apart from the East, the West stayed Roman Catholic, or stayed Roman, and they also called their Christianity Catholic or Roman Catholic. The Byzantines, they become known as the Byzantines, and their type of Christianity becomes Greek Orthodox. Now, wait a minute. What does Orthodox mean? We talked about that with our vocabulary last week. What does that mean? Orthodox means it's very stuck on tradition. It's not changing. It's going to consistently stay the same. Here's the Hagia Sophia. Right? Yes, it still exists. Yes, it looks similar to that today. It is still a very important building. Right? These pillars that are actually on the side, we will talk about in our next unit, but they are called minarets. They are a way for Muslims, because this did become a mosque, which is a Muslim church, they're a way for Muslims to actually be called to prayer because they pray 5 times a day. And then here are some of the artwork that is inside of the Hagia Sophia. So here's one of the seraphim, and actually here is the inside of the dome. All right. I know it doesn't feel like it, but if you look up, it's like, whoa. All right. So you guys are going to explain the significance of Emperor Justinian's rule over the Byzantine Empire. Again, use your notes to help you. Give you a few minutes for that. All right. So Emperor Justinian reconquered parts of the Western Roman Empire. He developed a legal code that modern legal codes are based on. Our laws are partially based on those. Improved the rights of women, built the Hagia Sophia Church, which became the central church of the Greek Orthodox religion. All right, so now we have a comprehension cross-check. So we are going to identify and describe his achievements in the areas of politics, society and culture, and architecture to complete the chart. All right, so you have one for politics, one for social, and one for architecture. Again, use your notes. Give you a couple minutes. All right, so for political, he reconquered parts of the Western Roman Empire. For social, he created Justinian's Code. He also gave more rights to women. And his architectural is building the Hagia Sophia. All right, might want to add more rights to women in social achievements. All right, now there's 2 videos here that we can watch. I'll leave that for you to watch those. I'll leave you to watch those on your own. Now, when you do, go ahead and start at these areas because, well, extra credits, they add a little bit of extra stuff that we don't need. All right, I'm not starting those here. All right, guys, go ahead and watch those 2 videos on your own. Have a great rest of your day.